Hello everybody, it's the final word with Thomas Cole, and that's me, your host, Thomas Cole. And today we're going to interview Elrawd Maclearn, who is running for county recorder. He's running against Joe Holland. And I'm going to read his bio, just so you can get a little idea of what Elrawd has done. Here we go. Elrawd was raised in a low-income household of 13. As the third oldest sibling, he had to work supplement the family income, and he raised his younger siblings after his parents' divorce. He earned a bachelor's in biology from UCLA and an associate's from Orange County Community College. During his college career, he was president of the EOPS Honors Club, Phi Theta Kappa member, and on the dean's list several times, appointed a role in the Associated Student Government, and earned several scholarships and grants, including a full scholarship to UCLA. I wish I had one of those. He performed biomedical research at UCI and a teacher's assistant for molecular biology, and was a resident assistant at UCLA as well. Volunteerism has been a large part of Elrawd's life. He started volunteering at his church's food pantry as a teenager. And during college, he led his honors club to do a clothing drive, raise funds for student scholarships, and he removed smoking to off-campus. After graduating college and moving to Santa Barbara, he ran for the Santa Barbara Unified School District School Board, that was in 2020, and afterwards began volunteering with Stand Up Santa Barbara, a countywide political nonprofit that seeks to engage our communities in holding elected officials accountable. Wouldn't that be nice? And to unify ourselves locally on matters that affect us locally. Elrawd has been working since he was 16 and currently works as a Santa Barbara County Health Inspector. And he serves as a planning commissioner for the city of Goleta, where he is working on resolving the current housing crisis in Goleta. Election integrity has been a major concern of his since he was 18 years old, when he first worked as a polling place inspector. After a couple of election cycles, Elrawd became a polling place supervisor, where he managed several polling places. He also volunteered at the elections office during the recall election of 2021, where he received the ballots from all the polling precincts. Lastly, Elrawd is also an active member of his church, where he plays in the praise band and has served as a Sunday school teacher. All right, and this show will be available on channel 17 and 71 TVSB, and also on our YouTube channel, Analytics 805 at YouTube. We'd like to welcome candidate Elrawd Maclearn, who's running for County Clerk, Recorder, Assessor. Welcome, Elrawd.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Having me here and giving me the opportunity to sit down with yourself and TVSB to explain to the audience and to you why I'm running, a little bit about my background, and the solutions that I hope to bring about once I successfully win this campaign. So I guess I'm just going to jump right into talking a little bit about myself. I am the third oldest of 13 kids, and part of that background and how that's kind of formulated my upbringing and development was that when my parents divorced, I had to spend several years being the father figure for my younger siblings and helping grow and mature them and take them to school and just run a household for several years. And that really caused me to understand a lot of the important things in life. Things like honesty and integrity and why they actually matter and why they have an impact on us. And I ran for office in 2020 for the school board here in Santa Barbara Unified. And in doing that race, I just saw a lot of the lack of transparency in working with the elections office and how there are economic barriers to candidates who want to bring about change and want to make this county a better place. And so I'm running to actually facilitate those changes and fix the issues that I see.
Right, you say economic barriers, and are you meaning like the cost to run, actually to sign up is a problem, you think?
Most definitely, Thomas. So when I had to file for this candidacy right now, I had to pay roughly $1,600 just to file. And then in order to put a statement in the candidate voter's guide,
that's right,
or the voter's guide there, it was going to cost me $9,600, which in total, that's about roughly $10,000 just to file. I haven't done anything yet, but it's that much money to file. And so if anyone who's younger, and I'm a millennial and I'm almost 30, but a lot of us are here in Santa Barbara, we're just trying to work jobs, we're just trying to pay rent, gas is going higher than high, we have a lot of taxes, and things just are very cost prohibitive here, and it's a struggle for a lot of people just to survive. And we see these things, and if we want to make a change, it's quite difficult when you have such a high barrier. So what I propose in that regard is the clerk recorder assessor makes roughly about $200,000, which is a lot of money. I think if I'm in that office, I want to put aside some of that salary to create a fund to start paying for low-income candidates. Now, and I say take part of the salary, and people may ask, why is that? Because partly the Secretary of State and partly the Register of Voters sets those costs. So I can't, when I enter the office, completely eradicate those filing fees, but I can do some of my own efforts to make them a lot less.
That's quite an offer to take out of your own salary.
Oh, yeah.
And just offer to cut those prices for other candidates. I know it's very expensive. The $9,600 is a big nut to crack if you're a younger person, if you're not in government, making $200,000 a year, $300,000 a year. It's not so easy to just blow out $10,000.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit to that, I think a part of those high fees kind of give way to special interests, because the person coming in, they're young, they're new to the political process, they don't have the money like we are talking about, and then someone who's representing a special interest group comes in and they're like, hey, we can pay those filing fees for you. You're just going to have to, do this or vote this way or pass this kind of legislation. So. And I want our elections process and our public officials to be as honest and transparent as possible.
Certainly. That's one of the things I know we talked about earlier was that transparency.
Yeah.
You wanted to have more transparency for our elections, which seems like a great idea, especially after what has possibly happened in 2020. A lot of people were wondering what is going on.
Yeah.
And I know I even wrote to Joe Holland and said, what's with these numbers? Where did this 17,000 new voters come from, and where were they registered? How come they all voted one way?
Yeah.
So you are aware of those things. You're thinking you have some ideas that would help curb some of this problem that is even maybe it's perceived, but people aren't even able to look at the numbers and look at the ballots. So maybe you could go over some proposals that you.
Yeah. The question of election integrity is not something new, Thomas, not at all. I mean, back in 2018, there was the talk of the Russians hacking the election. If we want to go way back, we can talk about the 2000 election where we had the whole hanging Chad issue and they had to recount ballots for Al Gore and George Bush way back then. So this is not a new thing. At all, in any way, shape, or form. So I just want to be really clear about that. This is not a 2020 specific issue. No, this is a continuing issue, which going back to the 2000 races, that's around the time when the incumbent actually came into office in 2002, 2003. So we have seen a lot of issues that have been raised. In going most recently in 2020, like you're talking about here locally, there was questions about the UCSB dorms and their precincts not matching up. There was even questions where some folks here within the county, 29 people signed affidavits, requesting Joe Holland to explain their concerns, but he didn't, and they had their affidavits returned to them. And I would say that is really just a government official kind of showing disdain for the concerns of the electorate. And I think that's highly irresponsible.
Right, that's a great line too, disdain for the electorate.
Yeah.
People did feel that, for whatever reasons, mainly because he just had disdain for them.
Yeah.
And, still I'm going to ask Joe Holland to come on and explain some of these things to us or somewhere, because no one's heard a peep out of him.
Yeah.
It doesn't help.
And you asked about solutions, and I want to answer that question.
Yes.
So some of the solutions that I think should be brought about is, for example, the people currently feel disenfranchised, or there's a portion of the people in our county that feel disenfranchised by the votes. And that transparency would be for the register of voters to say, you know what, to assuage those fears, we are going to do an audit. And just so that we can show, because if everything's right and everything's as it should be, do an audit. It doesn't hurt, because our whole goal, or the registrar's whole goal, should be to ensure the integrity of the vote and ensure the good faith of the people in the process. And I believe that honesty doesn't have a price. And I know that you asked for like a recount to be done, and I know they told you that it would cost some $20,000, right?
We asked for some data actually,
Yeah.
and all they would offer was a recount.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they didn't give you the data.
No, that's the thing we wanted, but data would have helped.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. There should be this discussion that should be had. It shouldn't just be the stonewall to information. And if it does cost $20,000, if that was the cost, the county should not have you pay for that, because I don't think honesty has a price at all. There's no price to honesty. There's no price to maintaining that faith in our electoral process at all. And that's why I'm saying, like, people who are registered voters shouldn't have to pay. You shouldn't have to pay to run for office. You shouldn't have to pay to see the data. It should all just be open in there for you. And going back to that transparency thing, I've seen, it's more so, it's more of an accuracy thing. Because I've looked at the statements of votes cast and whatnot. And I've seen there's precincts that have more than 100% of votes. There's precincts where the precinct numbers don't match what's on the maps to what's on the statement of votes. There's miscalculated votes, mistabulated votes. And I'm sure that the Register of Votes probably has explanations for all of these things. But at worst, this is sloppy tabulation of the voter data. At worst, it could be something a little more nefarious going on. But once again, the Register of Voters needs to maintain that the faith in their office. And if they are mishandling the votes, the faith is not there.
Right. If we see ballots that are going in by the thousands and we have no record of who those people are, that was the difficulty as well, because you want to have a recount, they're just going to recount those faulty ballots. And you're going to get the same result. So it doesn't help when they were saying, we could have a recount if you want.
Yeah.
But even so, the county certainly has money to do these things. As you're suggesting, they should pay for investigations of some type. Or, as you say, if it was more transparent, people wouldn't be asking for an investigation. They'd just go on the website and they'd look at the numbers and go, wow, all those people voted. We didn't expect that. But we can't do that, really.
Yeah, and also along those lines of transparency and accuracy, I think that there should be a way to just show everything that's going on. And I mean, if someone wants to, for example, tour, and they do in a limited fashion. Like, for example, if you want to go watch the ballots being counted and things like that, any registered voter can do that. But it's not really advertised in a sense. I think a lot of people are very shocked and surprised when they're told, oh, I can actually, as a registered voter, go and watch the ballots being cast. I can go, tour the elections offices. A lot of people don't know that. And I think those kind of things need to be advertised to all the voters, once again, to maintain that faith and trust in the process. Because if we don't have faith and trust in the process, I don't know, it leads to some scary things.
Right. I mean, Bobby McGinnis is always working on getting poll watchers in, and other members of Cheryl Trotsky and such are working on the integrity projects, getting poll watchers and such, which is laudable. But again, we get back to, well, if you're watching ballots, you're only going to see 300 or 400 ballots a night.
Yeah.
But they come flying in thousands and thousands to the main office. So let me just delve a little more into what else might you recommend when you were in office as a county clerk recorder. What do you have a little list of anything?
Yeah, and thank you for continuing to go back to solutions. I think the solutions are important. So I think for a time being, we need to return to hand counting all of our ballots. Like right now, only a certain percentage are counted by hand to kind of double check the electronic vote counting that's going on. And I know, once again, some of the reasons why the county has moved to an electronic system is cost. But once again, as I said before, if we're gonna have a more safe and secure and accurate system, we need to put the personnel in, we need to put the time in. Like, none of that matters so we can establish that integrity with the ballots. So I think for a time being, we need to immediately halt what we're doing so we can have an entire, as I said before, an entire audit of the process. So let's go back to what we know to work. With paper ballots, we can do that. Let's count, let's figure it out what's going on. Figure out why there are tabulation inaccuracies in the ballots being counted. And then I think also we need to look onward and in the future to more developed systems. Like, for example, there's voting that can be done on the blockchain. I know a lot of people are talking about this type of thing, and when people think blockchain, they think cryptocurrency, but there's a lot more uses with that aspect of it. So we need to be forward thinking as well as ensuring our current processes are correct.
So an audit of the current process, not necessarily an audit of the last votes. They're sitting there, but we're going to audit the process, is what you're recommending.
I would say audit the process, because because before we can even see if there's something wrong with the count, we need to know the actual process and things, find those errors, and then we can further on go and look at other elections, because we can say, okay, we know that these are the problem issues, and let's go apply those known problem areas to these elections and see if they happened there.
And as a test, so you run
Exactly.
some testing, and at this point, that would be wonderful if we could do that. You know, Mr. Holland, can we go in and run some tests and see how this works? Forget it. We're not allowed on the premises. So this is not transparency that we have now.
Yeah.
So you're suggesting, we need to have more transparency. You need to be a man of the people. Come in, let's look at the process. Let's work it out. Let's test it and see that it works. And put all those tests on the internet, for instance.
Yes, I don't understand the need to be obscure with the data and the process. Now, I understand, for example, with the voting machines, if you don't want to just say, okay, this is the code of the, how we count it, and let's give out the computer code. Like, that's ridiculous. But I think you want to be very clear and open with the entire process and how things are actually, because show the election manual, publish it, let people see how things are actually going, because the more you're open, the more trust will be restored in that process.
Right, and we certainly need trust in the voting process, especially the people that lose. They have no trust at all.
Exactly, speaking to that, I did run, as I said earlier, I did run for office in 2020 for school board here in Santa Barbara, and I'm not mostly running because I lost in that election. I'm running because I understand the importance of this position. If we can't honestly elect our public officials, then we don't have honest public officials. if we cannot be able to participate and get candidates to run the election process, then how do we actually have diversity in this process? We don't have it at all. Basically, right now we've had the incumbent who's been in there 20 plus years, and we don't have the ingenuity and creativity of someone new. Also, during elections, this is a period of time where we, the voters, hold our public officials accountable. So this is the time, even if I don't win this election, it should be a time where the incumbent Joe Holland is like, okay, I am here to defend my position, and this is what I've been doing, and this is why. But what we've seen in the past years and currently is a refusal to engage with candidates and with the public on issues that they have. Also, I would say this, I think there's a clear, very clear conflict of interest with Joe Holland managing the elections and also being the official counting his own election that he's being contested in.
Right.
You know, I think if anything, he should come out publicly and be like, you know, I will recuse myself and very clearly separate from the election process while he's being contested during this primary. 100%. That needs to happen.
So maybe bring in a deputy inspector for the process, and he can just sit back in his office and not be counting his own votes.
Exactly.
For once.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So maybe that's a challenge.
Tom, it is 100% a challenge. If we're talking about challenges, also I would say, you know, I challenged Joe Holland to a debate between him and I. I think people need to see the differences of someone who's been in this office almost ensconced from the regular public, and then they can see someone like myself who is a regular, honest Santa Barbaran that wants to make difference in a change. And so this is a challenge.
Let's have 100%. Let's have a debate right here then.
Exactly.
In a few weeks we'll ask him.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful. And you know, you want to bring integrity, which we think we have. We don't know, but there's suspicions. But when they circle the wagons and completely close us out, it doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good. When we had go to the office, they just kind of gave us this, take off. Now, I do want to circle back to the blockchain item, because I know a lot of people are maybe interested in that, but don't know a lot about it. But you were suggesting the blockchain as a way to secure the votes. Would that be each person has a number, and that number is only them?
Yes.
So we can check the blockchain and say, okay, Joe Schmitz voted, and if we can't have two people voting that same name, which could be very helpful if that could be.
The blockchain, which is a rapidly developing new technology, it basically is something that's very open, it's very transparent, it's very public. And so each registered voter would be able to get, a unique identifier given to them, and whenever they vote, they make a permanent change to the blockchain that everyone can see and attest to, which makes it very hard to change their vote in any way, shape, or form. And in discussing that, and one of the weak points that I will admit is that you have to have a verification process for each individual voter. And I know here in California, we don't require any kind of voter ID or things like that. You don't have to really truly prove your identification before you vote. So the blockchain might be some kind of in-between compromise, because if you can verify your identity when you enter into the blockchain, then you always have that unique identifier tied to that identity.
Right.
And that should kind of be a compromise for that.
Right, and this would be to get voter integrity. We know there's only one of this person. Now, this is not something we may be able to do in the next few months or even a year, but it's something to think about.
Exactly.
As a way to get integrity. I know I had a couple of people that wrote in about some ideas about integrity, and one of them, may I ask about this, would be
Certainly.
What about like paper ballots? Is that something we can go back to? Paper ballots, and then it's like with barcodes that are tied to SS numbers. Would that be an absolute, you know?
Yeah, I think we definitely, as I said before, we want to take a pause and make sure, and I know, for example, there's been questions, and we use Dominion voting machines here in Santa Barbara County, and I know that they are certified by the EAC, which is a federal government agency that oversees elections and equipment and things like that. But I think we also need to have our own internal certification and auditing process over our voting machines as well, because yes, paper ballots do take a lot of time to process, and it is a little cumbersome. But I think for a time being, when we're in this uncertain phase of like what's going on in the election process here in Santa Barbara County, we do need to go back to paper ballots for a time being, and hand counting and things like that. Tying the ballot with a barcode to a social security number would be an excellent kind of verification. Now, it just kind of makes me question how could someone maybe possibly swipe a social security number, because you have a barcode, and within that barcode is a set of information that a computer can read. And I don't necessarily know if someone's social security number is stored within that barcode. So if it is, then all a identity hacker has to do is scan the barcode to pull the social security number, and we don't want to do that. So if there is a way to make it secure where that can't happen, but you can still tie that barcode to a person and make it very secure, then yeah, that would be good.
Right. And it's evident that you know about these processes.
Yeah.
Which is excellent, because if you didn't, it would be questionable that way you run for election office. But you know the processes and how these different barcodes might work, or
yes.
the blockchain possibility for having secure elections where you don't have the same person voting 5 times, or the person voting from different states. Well, now, what else shall we say about the office, about your election? How's the election going? Do you want to reach out to people, tell them some things? And
so I think the office of the Clerk Recorder Assessor is not well known, unfortunately. I think Holland's attempt to be under the radar, unheard and unseen in a sense, has kept the county and the voters kind of unaware of what's actually going on. So one of my goals as a candidate is to just educate everyone, like, hey, there is an office here that you can vote for, and these are the changes that need to be made, and here's how you can address those changes. If someone wants to learn more about my campaign, they can go to elrawd.com. I try to keep it very simple, just elrawd.com. Sometimes people misspell my names, but what I did is I bought a ton of domains of various spellings. So if someone misspells it, they can still get there.
Thank you. This has been The Final Word, and we're here with candidate Elrawd Maclearn. He's running for County Clerk, Recorder, and Assessor. And thank you, Elrawd.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you. See, I might just have him on, and then we can pull clips from him and you and put it together and make a debate. Like, hey.